My name is Marcus, and I'll probably be dead by the time you hear this. If this recording reaches you, then maybe there's still hope that someone will uncover the truth about what I found in the Vatican's underground tunnels. What I unleashed with that cursed key. God forgive me for what I set free. The beginning of the nightmare. It all started 3 weeks ago when I was working as a restoration architect on the renovation of the catacombs beneath St. Peter's Basilica. It was a dream job, exploring the historical depths of the Vatican, uncovering secrets buried for centuries. If I had known what I would find, I would have run on the first day. It was a rainy Thursday when I discovered the passage. I was measuring what seemed like an ordinary wall when I noticed the sound was different, hollow, as if there was an empty space behind it. After hours of careful investigation, I found a hidden mechanism. The wall opened like a secret door, revealing a corridor that wasn't on any of the official blueprints. The air that came out was freezing cold and carried a strange smell. It wasn't just mold or decay. It was something ancient, primitive, as if evil itself had a scent. With my flashlight trembling in my hands, I descended stone steps that seemed to extend infinitely into the darkness. The walls were covered with symbols I had never seen before. They weren't Christian, nor from any religion I knew. They predated Christianity, predated civilization as we know it. The cursed discovery. At the end of the corridor, I found a circular chamber. In the center, there was an altar of black stone, and upon it, the key. It wasn't made of ordinary metal. It seemed to be forged from a material that absorbed light, becoming darker when my flashlight hit it. Symbols pulsed faintly along its surface, like veins of red light running through a dead heart. I should have run. Should have sealed that passage and pretended I never found it. But curiosity, damn academic curiosity, was stronger. The key was warm to the touch, as if it had a life of its own. When I picked it up, I felt a strange vibration run up my arm, and for a moment, I swear I heard whispers in a language I couldn't identify. The words seemed to be spoken directly inside my head. That's when I noticed the lock. On the other side of the chamber, hidden in the shadows, there was a door of black iron covered with even more complex symbols. The lock in the center was perfectly compatible with the key in my hands. It was as if an invisible force was guiding me, as if I were just a puppet being manipulated by something much larger and much older. I turned the key. What was released? The sound that emerged from that door when it opened was not of this world. It was like 1,000 voices screaming in agony at the same time, mixed with something I can only describe as the roar of a primordial beast. The echo reverberated through the catacombs as if the stones themselves were screaming. The darkness that came out wasn't just the absence of light. It was a tangible presence, heavy, that moved with its own purpose. I saw shapes writhing within it, silhouettes that didn't follow the laws of physics or human anatomy. Things with many arms, many eyes, many mouths full of teeth that gleamed like pearls wet with blood. I ran like I had never run in my life, stumbling on the steps, scraping the walls, feeling that living darkness pursuing me like a tide of nightmares. Behind me, I heard the sound of footsteps, not human footsteps, but something that seemed to drag, crawl, and leap at the same time. I managed to get out of the catacombs and seal the entrance, but it was already too late. I had released something that should have remained buried, something that the ancient guardians of the Vatican knew existed and kept imprisoned for millennia. The hunt begins. In the first days after the discovery, I tried to convince myself it had just been an episode of claustrophobia and overactive imagination. I reported the discovery to my supervisors, but when we returned to the site the next day, the passage had disappeared. The wall was solid again, as if it had never been opened. They thought I was crazy, but I knew I wasn't. Because things started following me. First were the shadows. Shadows that moved against the direction of the light, that stretched much farther than they should. that sometimes seemed to have their own form even when I was alone in a lit room. I saw them in the corner of my eyes, always hiding when I tried to look directly. Then came the whispers, the same ancient language I had heard in the underground chamber, now following me during the day. On the streets of Rome, in the subway, in my apartment. Words I couldn't understand, but somehow knew were about me. They spoke about opening, about freedom, about reward, and about punishment. In the first week, I found symbols scrawled on my apartment door, the same symbols from the underground chamber, traced with a dark substance that smelled like iron and rot. I cleaned them, but they returned the next night, and the next, always different, always more complex. The Guardians. It was in the second week that they appeared, the Guardians. I don't know their real name, but that's how they refer to themselves when they speak in my dreams. Men, or things that looked like men, wearing dark robes that completely covered their faces. They watched me from afar, always keeping distance, always present. In the coffee shops where I had my morning espresso, on buses, on corners near my apartment. They weren't human, I'm sure of that. The way they moved was wrong, too fluid, too silent. And when occasionally I could glimpse under their hoods, I saw only darkness. Not faces hidden in shadows, but literally nothing but a black void that seemed to suck the light around it. One night, one of them appeared in my apartment. It was simply there when I woke up, standing at the foot of my bed like a sinister statue. It didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there watching me with that darkness where there should have been a face. I tried to scream, but no sound came from my throat. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't obey. I lay paralyzed by terror, while that thing studied me like a scientist observing an interesting specimen. After hours, or maybe minutes, time seemed distorted. It turned and walked through the wall, literally through it, as if solid matter didn't exist for it. The next morning, I found a message carved into the wood of my nightstand. You opened what should not be opened. You freed what should remain imprisoned. The price must be paid. The truth about the key. Desperate, I began researching in the Vatican's oldest archives. I used my contacts, bribed librarians, explored collections that officially don't exist. What I found made me wish I had never been born. The key was known as Clavis Abyssi, the key of the abyss. According to the documents I managed to find, it was created in the 1st century AD by a group of Roman occultists who believed they could communicate with entities that existed before the creation of the world. They succeeded, and the result was a catastrophe that almost destroyed Rome. Saint Peter himself led a group of early Christians to contain the threat. They couldn't destroy the key or the entities, but they managed to imprison both in the depths beneath the site where the basilica would later be built. The key was sealed with Christian prayers and rituals. The entities were banished to a dimension parallel to ours, and special guardians were assigned to ensure they would never be freed. For 2,000 years, this vigil had been maintained, until I showed up and destroyed everything with my stupid curiosity. The guardians, I discovered, weren't transformed humans or supernatural creatures in the traditional sense. They were the very shadows of the first Christian guardians, kept conscious through ancient rituals to continue their eternal vigil, neither alive nor dead, existing only to protect the world from what I had unleashed. And now they were coming after me. The hunt intensifies. In the 3rd week, the persecution became more aggressive. The shadows now materialized during the day, becoming tentacles of pure darkness that tried to drag me into dark alleys and abandoned buildings. The whispers became screams that made my ears bleed, and the things I had freed, they began to appear in the physical world. I saw a child being chased by something that looked like a car-sized spider, but made of intertwined human arms. I saw an elderly man being devoured by a pulsating mass of eyes and mouths that emerged from a manhole. I saw things I cannot describe without my sanity completely crumbling, terrorizing innocent people on the streets of Rome. and all of this was my fault. The Guardians were no longer just watching me, they were actively hunting me. They appeared in front of me when I tried to flee, forcing me to change direction. They surrounded me in dead-end alleys, forcing me to choose between facing them or being caught by the creatures I had freed. I realized they wanted me alive, not to protect me, but to use me somehow. In my nightmares, they showed me images of what they wanted me to do: return to the catacombs, find the door again, and somehow repair the damage I had caused. But how? The key had disappeared the moment I opened the door, dissolving like sand between my fingers. And even if I could find a way to close the door again, the things that came out were already spread throughout the world, multiplying, infecting other places with their malignant presence. The containment ritual. In a desperate search for answers, I broke into the Vatican's secret archives during the early morning hours. I found documents that spoke of an absolute containment ritual, a ceremony that could rebanish the entities to their dimensional prison, but that required a specific sacrifice. The sacrifice was the one who had opened the door. The ritual had to be performed at the exact location where the key was used, in the presence of the Guardians and during the new moon phase. The sacrificed one had to pronounce specific words in ancient Latin, while his blood was spilled over the symbols carved on the black stone altar. His death would feed the dimensional seal, again sealing the passage between worlds and forcing the entities back to their eternal imprisonment. That's what the Guardians wanted from me. That's why they kept me alive, guiding me through the city like a lamb to slaughter. They knew that eventually I would discover the truth and accept my fate. And they were right. The final decision. I'm recording this on the night before the new moon. Tomorrow I will voluntarily go to the Vatican's underground tunnels. I'll find a way to reach the secret chamber, even if it means surrendering myself completely to the Guardians. I'll perform the ritual, pronounce the ancient words, and pay with my life for the mistake I made. It's not heroism, it's cowardice in disguise. I can no longer live knowing that innocent people are dying because of my curiosity. Every scream I hear on the streets of Rome, every unexplained disappearance I see in the news, every report of paranormal phenomena that appears in other cities. All of this is my fault. The creatures are spreading. Yesterday, I received news of similar sightings in Paris. Today, reports came from London. If I don't act soon, what I started here in Rome will become a global plague. The Guardians know of my decision. They seem to nod with approval when I pass them today. Or maybe it was just my imagination. It's hard to distinguish reality from hallucination when your mind is constantly being bombarded by whispers in dead languages. The last testimony. If you're hearing this, it means I managed to send this recording before going down to the catacombs for the last time. Maybe the ritual worked and the creatures have been rebanished. Maybe not. Maybe I just became another victim of the things I freed. But I have to try. If the ritual fails, if the creatures continue spreading, then you need to warn the world. The Vatican knows about the existence of these things. It always has. There are other places like that underground chamber, other dimensional prisons scattered around the world, other keys waiting to be found by people too curious for their own good. Never look for them, never try to open them. And if someday you find ancient symbols carved in stone, if you hear whispers in languages you can't identify, if you see shadows that move independently of light, run, and never look back. Knowledge doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it condemns you. Sometimes, some doors must remain forever locked. End of recording. The body of Marcus Romano was found 3 days later in the Vatican's underground tunnels, in a chamber that officially doesn't exist. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest caused by extreme terror. The symbols found carved into his hands were never deciphered, and the case was classified as highly confidential by Vatican authorities. Reports of anomalous creature sightings in Rome ceased completely after his death. However, similar incidents continue to be reported sporadically in other cities around the world, always preceded by the discovery of ancient artifacts or the opening of long-sealed locations. If you ever find a key that absorbs light and pulses with red symbols, don't touch it. Some prices are too high to pay, even in the name of human curiosity.